Hello and welcome to the year 2024. We pick up where we left off. We completed the French and Indian War at the conclusion of the first semester. We're now going into Unit 3, A New Nation, 1763 to 1791, and Chapter 5, No Taxation Without Representation, Lesson 5.1, Dealing with Great Britain and New Taxes on the Colonies. Here are your state academic standards. 8.H.4, which is the historical standard about identifying and explaining the reasons and actions for the resistance and rebellion against British imperial rule by the 13 colonies in North America from 1761 to 1775. And we have an economic standard here, 8.E.1, identify economic factors contributing to European exploration and colonization in North America, the American Revolution, and the drafting of the United States Constitution. Your objectives: by the end of this lesson, you will know the causes for the development of conflict between Britain and the colonies, and the consequences of that conflict and how it motivated colonial leaders and others to act. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to explain the Proclamation of 1763, analyze why Britain began to enact harsher trade laws and taxes, understand cause and effect relationships as they relate to the reaction of the colonists, and lastly, identify those individuals and groups that began to rebel against British policy. Okay, here is our first page of text, and of course, there is your title, No Taxation Without Representation. And our essential question here for this reading is, why does conflict develop? And it matters because conflict between the American colonies and the British began to deepen in the years after the French and Indian War. Our first section we're dealing with here is dealing with Great Britain. And then the guiding question for this section is, why did the British government establish new policies? And so that's important to get those things down. Um, One thing I want to point out to you that I'm doing different this semester than what I did last semester is I've included the pages that I scan in. On the bottom of each page, if there are either a list or a set of words with definitions, you will have those available to you because I'm going to have you working on what are called vocabulary pyramids, where you'll need to write the name of the word, the definition, write the new word in a sentence, have the synonym and antonym, and I'm going to show that all to you when we get there. And so don't worry about that, but I just wanted to highlight that and draw your attention to that. So here you have prohibited and you have revenue. Okay, so those are words that are listed here. I believe the prohibited is on the next page there. And let me go back here. And then we come continuing on from the previous page here. We have writs of assistance, and then we get into what's called the Sugar Act. Okay, and down here you have a map. It's important to pay attention to this map because this map will show you what is called the Proclamation of 1763. Okay, and this dividing line here that pretty much straddles the Appalachian Mountains. This is the colonists had to stay in this area here. They could not go past there, but you did have colonists who wanted to go out this way beyond the Appalachian Mountains, okay, but they were not allowed to. This here would be other British territory, but this is also going to be Native American territory, and of course, here is Indiana. Try to do the best I can to outline it there. And so we're going to be a part of that other British territory where Native Americans are currently, or at that time, were living. Okay, so make sure you pay close attention to this map as well as the map key. And there, of course, is your compass rose. Pay attention to those things. That'll help you to read and interpret that map there. Okay, and on the top of the next page, The economics part of this was mentioned in the state academic standards. It's important that you read this and understand, read the caption, look at the visual part here explaining what the growing debt was and why that played such a critical role in the conflict between the colonists and the British. Down here, you will have your progress check. That is a part of your questions. Why did Parliament pass the Sugar Act? And then you're on to your next section here, new taxes on the colonies. And then there is your guiding question. How did the American colonists react to British policies? And down here you get into opposition to the Stamp Act. And so that's something to be, make sure you're paying attention to as you read through. Once again, down here, you have your vocab words with their definitions. This is where you'll get your definitions to use for your vocabulary pyramids. And then here we have other, continuing actually the last page, we have resolution, effigies, boycott, repeal, and then, of course, right here, we have your final question, the progress check. And this is crucial because the Townshend Acts, you will have a question on your quiz assessment for this lesson. What were the Townshend Acts, or how are they different? And in fact, your progress check question reads, how did the Townshend Acts differ from the Stamp Act? So it's important you understand what this is here, okay? So I'm going to clear that and go back here. And then on the last couple of slides, I've included some visuals that should be helpful to you. This here gives you a summary of British legislation and colonial reactions, Sugar Act, Stamp Act, the Quartering Act, Declaratory Act, Townshend Revenue Acts, the Tea Act, the Coercive Acts, also known as the Intolerable Acts, the Prohibitory Act, when it went into effect. The provisions, those are what it basically dictated or what was going to happen. And then, of course, this column would be the colonial or the colonist reaction to each one of these types of British legislation there. So I want to make sure you understand what this is. This is a really good summarization table of all the British legislation and colonial reaction. And this here just shows where, once again, European land claims were right after the conclusion of the French and Indian War. And up here, you have, once again, just another little chart. It's as much condensed from the one I just showed you previously. And you have some drawings and illustrations. And also down here, you have a graphic illustration to show on the tea that was imported from Britain, and it shows you how much it increased, or actually, excuse me, decreased in a few short years leading up to the American Revolution. So I just want to make sure you understand that. And that brings us to the end of our slides. As always, if you have questions, please ask me. I'm always happy to assist you and want to make sure that you are uh, getting the information you need and you have the mastery so that you can move on to the next uh, item in our lessons here. So thank you very much for listening and wish you well as you go through this lesson and learn about no taxation without representation.